barricades, on met en batterie les canons, partout c'est l'insurrection. Les pauvres gens n'ont plus rien, la patrie est leur seul bien.
Just this last week alone has provided enough material for a conference in itself about anarcho-tyranny. Just a couple of days ago, a 91-year-old man was convicted for hate speech because he complained impolitely about his country being a place where he can't feel at home anymore. 91 years old. He's one of those people who has built this country into a place that people want to immigrate to. Now he can't feel at home here. And he's punished for complaining about it. I mean, these people are only too eager to prove our points, it seems. So when I landed at Arlanda Airport not last night, around noon, yesterday, I was met by the news that one of my main speakers, my headlining speaker, was banned from entering the country. Not only entering the country, he was banned from entering the Schengen zone. He was banned by Poland. Jared Taylor was banned by Poland. So when he landed in Switzerland yesterday for his connecting flight to Stockholm to participate in this very event, he was told by the authorities in Switzerland that he's been banned from the entire Schengen zone, and now he's turned back to the USA. So he can't go to Europe anymore. And isn't it ironic that he was on his way to a conference about anarcho-tyranny? And he would be held responsible. They said I was spreading a totalitarian ideology. I'm going to continue reading, but I just want us to pause for a few seconds to just consider that sentence and that statement. Can you think of a better example of screaming out in pain as you strike? Can you think of a better example than the authorities banning a person, the authorities enforcing totalitarianism, and calling the victim a totalitarian?
And really, when you look further, it's ruled by media. It's ruled by a tyrannical media run by a foreign influence, controlled by a foreign power. And that foreign power that controls our government wants to bring about anarchy. They want to bring about anarchy so they can impose tyranny. That is one of their goals. But that's not the only reason they bring about anarchy. Of course, tyrannical power is one of their goals. It's one of the things they seek. They want the right to see what you're typing on your computer. They want the right to hear what you're saying on your mobile phone. They want the right to listen in to what you have to say at your dinner table. They want the right to peek at every facet of your life. Where are we in that cycle? What part do we in this room here today have to play in this cycle of civilizations rising, falling, and rising again? Well, I think we know the answer to that. I think we know where we all stand. I don't think it would come as a shock to anyone gathered here today if I expressed my opinion on this, which is we are nearing the end of our cycle. We are nearing the end of these times we live in. There is only so much degeneracy. There is only so much poison, so much rot that can be foisted upon us as people before the cycle completes.
Yes. The neoliberal narrative is that they are the good guys in the center, and on the extremes, on the fringes, there are Islamic radicals, and then they have to balance that with some right-wing radicals. They need this to uphold the narrative of the liberals taking measures against all extremists. So, for example, if the Swedish police or the British police wants to crack down upon a certain mosque or whatever it might be, what do they need to do? Yes, they need to crack down upon some sort of right-wing dissident to just prove that point. So it is a game that they have to play to be able to commence their work, basically. Race realists or right-wing dissidents can look to him and say, this is how we speak, this is how we dress, this is how we interact with other humans. Because there is a danger, a real danger in accommodating to and catering for edgy, anonymous individuals who they don't have any skin in the game themselves, but they want others to take the heat for them. So they want to push public figures to say, oh, why don't you talk more about this, or we should do this with that ethnic group, or yeah, whatever. You've all seen the comments. So it's important to never accommodate to these people. Who we should accommodate to is the highest level of presentability, so to speak. So think of Gerard next time you have a discussion or debate with someone. Dress like Gerard, speak like Gerard, and conduct yourself. It gives a very good impression.
And I want to begin with a quote from Nietzsche. Nietzsche said, I believe it was in Twilight of the Idols, he said, "The crowned heads of Europe sit more securely on their thrones because anarchists are now shooting at them." And the point was, of course, that because anarchists were shooting at and stabbing and bombing the crowned heads of Europe, that gave the crowned heads of Europe ample reason to ramp up the level of surveillance and repression in their societies, and so they were sitting more securely because of assassins. And I think that that's a lesson that we all need to pay attention to today. Right-wing terrorism, like Brenton Tarrant's shooting spree in New Zealand, helps the enemy and harms our movement in 4 ways. First of all, it creates public sympathy in our people for the victims of these crimes, and the victims of these crimes belong to groups that we would like to build a case for separating ourselves from them. And it makes all the liberals want to just cling to them even more and dress like them and act like them and show solidarity with them. That's not a good thing. Second, it makes white advocates look bad, because our job is to convince the world that white nationalism is a solution to ethnic conflict, not a cause of ethnic conflict. Third, it energizes the left. It gives them options for signaling and manufacturing martyrs and ginning up moral panics. And fourth, those moral panics are used as pretexts for repressing us, repressing our freedom of speech and repressing our right to bear arms, and those are bad things. They want to believe that the only reason multiculturalism isn't working is because they're being deceived by persuasive silver-tongued deceivers like me or Jared Taylor. They don't know the half of it. The reason that multiculturalism isn't working is that it can't work, and it will only continue to fail, and it will only intensify in its failure as they double down on the policies that are driving people in our direction. So as hard as I work, and as hard as Frody works, and Martin works, and all of you work to raise people's consciousness, we're not doing a fraction of the consciousness raising that the establishment is doing by enforcing multiculturalism and globalization. Which means, because the longer we stay in the debate, the greater our reach, the quicker it's going to happen. We win every argument in every fair debate. And this is why the enemy wants to shut us down, because they're tired of losing. They're tired of losing in debates with us. You know, they're so smug and so serene that all of this was going to proceed according to plans. They didn't even factor in the idea that there would be a pushback. Multiculturalism just means every year there'll be fewer white people, more white dispossession. And they actually were arrogant enough to think that there would be no pushback. We are the pushback.
I'm going to be speaking about an organization, a British organization called Hope Not Hate. Oh, you've all heard of it. Right, good. I was going to say, like many in this movement, Sellner is clearly a good man. He's not a villain. But Hope Not Hate desperately try to paint him as a villain. They also try to obstruct his organization. Generation Identity's Defend Europe mission, though it had nothing to do with Britain, was heavily attacked by Hope Not Hate. I think, and this was about stopping the NGOs that they're bringing their ships full of migrants into Europe. And I think the idea of white people actively stopping outsiders from entering Europe absolutely terrified Hope Not Hate. In the way that you sometimes see public figures who seem to have a visceral hatred and fear of white people actually standing up for their countries and protecting their borders. But the fact is, Hope Not Hate don't limit themselves to violent groups. Most of their time, money, energy, and resources are spent vilifying peaceful people. So 90% of their report is about far-right activity, even though 92% of the people arrested in Europe for terrorism are Islamists, with only 2.6% being right-wing. That's according to Europol. So Hope Not Hate is strongly connected to the Labour Party. Some of its senior staff are communists or ex-communists. It receives much of its funding from trade unions. The vast majority of its focus is on right-wing groups, and it collaborates with left-wing Antifa. The idea that Hope Not Hate is a non-partisan organisation is simply ludicrous. Living at his dad's house and making very downbeat, slow-paced intellectual videos on a tiny YouTube channel. Yet, when Hope Not Hate discovered this, their first reaction was to try to obtain my name and hunt me down. Now, is that not strange? Very much a harmless channel, an intellectual project, a guy with no social power whatsoever, no influence, not connected to any organizations. Very much an innocent project. And yet their first reaction was, who is he? What's his name? Where is he? How can we find him? And the reason for, I mean, it's obvious why they would want to do that is silencing, intimidation. Your ideas might be crazy, but you can still be victorious. All you have to do is demonize your opponent so that people don't take him seriously, and distort his ideas so that people misunderstand them, and reduce his motivation to hate so that people don't respect him. This might be immoral and dishonest, but so what? You're not interested in the truth or in virtue. You're interested in winning. That is the modus operandi of Hope Not Hate. They are interested in winning, in crushing their opponents by any means they can. Deplatforming, obstructing, defunding, travel visas revoked, conferences shut down, conference speakers deported, discrediting people, demonizing them, and demoralizing individuals and organizations. We'll skip back to the matter of sadism, which I think is interesting, psychologically interesting, because again, it shows you that this actually matters to the people involved. It's not just a professional career for them. They are actually enjoying it. Okay, in August 2018, Matt Collins, one of the head researchers, tweeted the following: "Poor old Alex Davis, the founder of National Action, has been sacked from his job." Now, I'm not defending National Action here. I'm just noting that there was no need for this to be done, for this to be said by Matt Collins. Poor old Alex Davis has been sacked from his job. If he needs those underdeveloped arms beefing up, we'll buy him a ham sandwich in that little cafe he sits in all day in Swansea. Now, the significance of this is, first of all, they're making fun of him for losing his job as a result of their attacks on him. They're also drawing attention to his physical weakness at a time when he's stressed out of his mind. And also they're indicating that they are following him around in daily life.
And as a result, heroism becomes simply impossible as an individual feat. And Stunger says that the only approach which can be cultivated under such altered condition is heroic realism. And the stoical acceptance of such changes is what exactly makes it heroic. Again, not some individual antique-style heroic feat. And total mobilization, again, creates total war. Total war entails total state, total world or planetary state in which we live today. These developments were also brightly described by Ernst Junger's colleague, famous German lawyer and political philosopher Carl Schmitt, who observed that in this total state, enmity also becomes total, because there are no more organic identities, there are no more nations, there are no more cultural and civilizational types. There is simply humanity, abstract concept, and everyone who opposes this global multicultural world order becomes just an enemy of humanity. This person, of course, gets heavily demonized against, again, the absolute enemy of good, evil, of good and humanity. So these are conditions which surround us today, and in order to change this world order, it is very important to introduce the very principle of difference, intuition which underlies conceptions of identitarians. Today, this idea, it is also revived by, familiar to many of you, Alexander Dugin. He actually rebranded Carl Schmitt's concept of pluriversum, when Schmitt says that there is no universum, there is no humanity, there is a pluriversum of different wills, different organic identities, different interests, and it's a normal situation. Just like the opposition between political regimes and competing sides at war is also normal. So the point at this stage is that this anarchic tyranny, this hybrid regime reigning across the globe, it has technological foundation. First industrial, then post-industrial. First of all, different audiovisual technologies which help to control the society, which are omnipresent now and which help the regime, the system, to marginalize those on the third way, on the alt-right, and create at least an artificial wall between us and people. Ernst Junger, he also occupies quite a special place among the theorists of philosophy of technology, because he was the one who insightfully associated technology with nothing else as mythological forces of Titanism, with Titan Prometheus in particular. In terms of Ernst Junger's philosophy of culture, which in my opinion has very high descriptive value, in terms of this philosophy of culture, Titans are chthonical creatures who revolt against the Olympians, the gods, by destroying the established borders between different kinds of creation. In Oswald Spengler's term, including beings or creatures of the higher type like cultures, nations, nation-states, and races. So in fact, this technological development, these forces of Titanism, they create or rather produce the world state, because creation, again, it's the merit of these divine principles, whereas the Titans, they stand for the principle of productivity. And according to this philosophy of culture, the only difference between interwar industrial orders and post-war, post-industrial order, the only difference between totalitarian past and so-called liberal world is a little shift of perspective. Industrial orders in the interwar period, they bore the mark of Titan Prometheus. The principle of productivity, homo faber, merciless industrial warfare, which has a rational structure. Whereas post-industrial, post-war liberal world, it simply doesn't need anymore this heroic will to power of the Promethean archetype. It becomes, because the post-war Titans, so to speak, they have a much more powerful ally. In terms of Junger's philosophy of culture, again, it is Mother Earth itself, Gaia, who revolts against the heavenly law of Uranus, against heaven. And Junger is again made a last remark in the field of his philosophy of culture. He said that the shipwreck of Titanic was also an important sign sent to us by Cassandra, which indicated that the reign of the Titans would also soon come to an end. For him, it was not only the matter of sequential change of the gods and the Titans, yes. He meant that, of course, according to his forecast, the Titans' technological order will reign throughout the entire 21st century. But then the gods will return. They will cast the Titans again into the abyss, in the Tartarus, but at the same time, they will bring the eventual end of the anthropocentric history, which started its decline. He countered the tradition hailing from the well-known letter sent by writer Émile Zola to the president of French Republic, I accuse, in defense of Alfred Dreyfus. Since then, the tradition of criticism of the state from a civic perspective, it has been exclusively associated with the left. But post-war Junger was one of the founders of the tradition of this criticism of the world police state, so to speak, from the right. Because he saw that totalitarian orders, which had to cancel this fake liberal freedom, fake liberal society, they did not bring the desired changes. They didn't bring freedom. Actually, post-war liberal order started using these totalitarian changes, this disciplined structure of the world.
Multiculturalism leads to conflict. And in our countries, multiculturalism means white dispossession. Every time people talk about diversity, that's just a euphemism for fewer white people. That means white people losing their jobs, their homes, their neighborhoods, and so forth. You know, libertarians and communists like to say power comes from the barrel of a gun. But that cynicism is very naive, actually. Most political power comes from the fact that people believe in the legitimacy of the state. And we can change people's minds about the legitimacy of the state, and it's collapsing. The legitimacy of the state is collapsing. So that's important. Yeah, so
that is attacking the effects and not the cause of the problem, right? It's like a bull going after the red cape instead of going after the matador. If you want to influence politics, you have to ask yourself, who is the chess player and who is just a pawn in the game? So who has political agency? Probably not those Muslims. So what we have to do is we have to deal with the roots of the problem. And those roots are ideological. And that's what we're challenging today.
Well, I think people look towards conservatives or conservatism as some kind of fight back against the problems we face. They seem like a natural starting point for people who are waking up to the problems around us. But the conservatives are not our friends in any sense of the word. In fact, in the UK, the Conservative Party, quite curiously, has passed the most draconian laws restricting speech, have got the record for letting in the most immigrants in a single year, and they also had a prime minister that legalised gay marriage and claimed that the legalisation of gay marriage was in fact a core conservative principle.
So basically, Hope Not Hate is an organisation that peddles hatred. Hatred for Brexiteers. Hatred for the right. Hatred for the far right. Hatred for generation identity. Hatred for the alt-right. Hatred for the alt-light. Hatred for Nigel Farage. Hatred for Sargon of Akkad. Hatred for free speech proponents. Hatred for the yellow vests. Hatred for some